I never thought silence could be so loud. The kind that fills a room after your boss tears apart your dream in front of everyone you work with. The kind that makes your face burn and your hands shake under the table. The kind that changes everything. Subscribe to this channel. My name is Emma, and I'm about to tell you how the worst moment of my professional life became the best thing that ever happened to me. But first, you need to understand who I was before that day. Before the humiliation. Before the anger. Before I decided to prove everyone wrong. I was 28 years old, working as a mid-level product designer at a tech company called Vertex Solutions. Not a startup. Not some Silicon Valley giant. Just a solid, boring, mid-sized company that made software for retail inventory management. Exciting, right? But I loved it. I loved the puzzle of it. Figuring out how to make complicated systems simple. How to help people do their jobs better without even thinking about the software they were using. I'd been there for 4 years. 4 years of showing up early. Staying late. Taking on extra projects. Mentoring junior designers. I thought I was building something. A career. A reputation. Trust. My boss was a man named Richard Caldwell. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suits, the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. He'd founded Vertex 15 years earlier and ran it like his personal kingdom. Everyone feared him a little. Including me. But I respected him. Or at least I thought I did. He had this way of making you feel like you were part of something important. Like your work mattered. Like he saw your potential. I believed him. God, I was naive. For 6 months, I'd been working on something outside my regular responsibilities. Something I hadn't been asked to do. A passion project. I noticed a gap in the market. Small businesses, the kind with 5 to 20 employees, they struggled with the same inventory problems as big retailers. But all the existing solutions were too expensive, too complicated, too corporate. They needed something simple. Intuitive. Affordable. So I started building it. Nights and weekends. Early mornings before work. A lightweight inventory management system designed specifically for small businesses. Clean interface. Mobile first. Subscription-based pricing that wouldn't break the bank. I called it Streamline. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted it to be real before I showed it to anyone. I wanted to prove it could work. After 6 months, I had a working prototype. I'd tested it with 3 small business owners I knew, friends of friends, people who agreed to try it out. They loved it. One of them, a woman who owned a small boutique, actually cried when she saw how easy it was to use. She said it would save her hours every week. That's when I knew I had something. That's when I decided to tell Richard. I thought he'd be excited. I thought he'd see the potential. Maybe even want to develop it under the Vertex umbrella. I requested a meeting with him. Just the 2 of us, I thought. A casual pitch. But when I walked into the conference room that Tuesday morning, it wasn't just Richard. It was the entire leadership team. 8 people. CFO, CTO, head of sales, head of marketing, the works. All of them sitting around that long glass table, looking at me like I was about to present the quarterly budget. My stomach dropped. Emma, Richard said, gesturing to the empty chair at the end of the table. Have a seat. I thought since you wanted to discuss a new product idea, the whole team should hear it. My throat went dry. This wasn't what I'd planned. I'd prepared for a conversation, not a formal presentation. But I couldn't back out now. So I sat down. Opened my laptop. And started talking. I explained the market gap. Showed them the research I'd done. Walked them through the prototype. Demonstrated how it worked. Shared the feedback from my test users. I could feel my voice shaking a little, but I pushed through. I believed in this. When I finished, there was silence. Not the good kind. The kind where people are trying to figure out how to tell you something without being cruel. Richard leaned back in his chair. He looked at me. Then he looked at the screen. Then back at me. And he laughed. Not a chuckle. A full, loud laugh. Emma, he said, shaking his head. This is adorable. Adorable. That word hit me like a slap. I mean, I appreciate the enthusiasm, he continued. But come on. You really think you've stumbled onto something that actual product teams with actual budgets haven't thought of? My face burned. The market research shows, I started. The market research shows you talked to 3 people, he interrupted. 3. That's not research, that's a hobby. A few people around the table shifted uncomfortably. But no one said anything. No one defended me. Listen, Richard said, his tone shifting to something that almost sounded kind. You're a good designer. You do solid work on the projects we assign you. But this. He gestured at the screen. This is way outside your skill set. Product strategy, market positioning, business development, these are things you don't understand. I've been researching, stick to simple work, he said, cutting me off again. That's what you're good at. Making things look pretty. Making interfaces clean. That's valuable. But leave the big thinking to people who know what they're doing. The room was silent. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. The faint sound of someone's phone buzzing on the table. My own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Okay, I said quietly. I closed my laptop. Stood up. Walked out of that conference room with my head down and my hands trembling. I didn't cry. Not then. I made it back to my desk. Sat down. Stared at my screen. And that's when it hit me. Not sadness. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. He hadn't just dismissed my idea. He'd dismissed me. In front of everyone. He'd made me feel small. Stupid. Like I should be grateful just to have a job making things look pretty. I spent the rest of that day in a fog. People avoided eye contact with me. Word had already spread. By the end of the day, I knew what I had to do. I went home, opened my laptop, and wrote my resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice. Professional. Polite. No mention of what had happened. I submitted it the next morning. Richard didn't even try to talk me out of it. He just accepted it with a shrug and told HR to process my exit paperwork. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every day felt like walking through glass. But I kept my head down. Finished my projects. Handed off my work. And on my last day, I walked out of that building and never looked back. I had $15,000 in savings. No job lined up. And a prototype that my former boss thought was adorable. But I also had something else. Belief. Not in Richard. Not in Vertex. In myself. I spent the first week after leaving my job doing nothing. Just processing. Letting myself feel everything I'd been holding in. The anger. The humiliation. The fear. Because I was terrified. Quitting without a plan was reckless. I knew that. But going back to another corporate job, having another Richard, it felt impossible. So I made a choice. I was going to build Streamline. Not as a side project. Not as a pitch to someone else's company. As my own. I had no idea how to start a company. I'd never taken a business class. Never written a business plan. Never pitched to investors. But I figured it out. I spent 12 hours a day learning. Reading articles. Watching videos. Joining online communities for startup founders. I refined the prototype. Made it faster. More intuitive. Added features based on feedback from my test users. I reached out to more small business owners. Coffee shops. Boutiques. Salons. Gyms. Anyone who would listen. I offered to let them use Streamline for free in exchange for feedback. Most people ignored me. But some didn't. By the end of the second month, I had 12 active users. They weren't paying yet, but they were using it every day. And they loved it. One of them, a guy named Marcus who owned a small bookstore, told me it had cut his inventory management time in half. Another, a woman named Lisa who ran a bakery, said she'd recommended it to 3 other bakery owners. That's when I knew I had to go all in. I used $8,000 of my savings to hire a freelance developer to help me rebuild the backend so it could scale. I taught myself basic marketing, SEO, social media, email campaigns. I created a simple website, set up a payment system, and 3 months after leaving Vertex, I officially launched Streamline. The first week, I got 2 paying customers. $60 a month in revenue. It wasn't much, but it was real. People were paying for something I'd built, something Richard had laughed at. I cried that night. Not from sadness. From relief. From validation. From the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy. The next few months were brutal. I was barely sleeping. Living off savings and ramen. Spending every waking hour on Streamline. Customer support. Bug fixes. Marketing. Sales. I was doing everything myself. But slowly, it started to grow. 5 customers. 10. 20. By the end of the first year, I had 200 paying customers and $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue. It wasn't life-changing money yet. But it was sustainable. I could pay myself a small salary. Hire a part-time developer. Invest in better infrastructure. And the feedback kept getting better. People were telling their friends. Writing reviews. Posting about it on social media. One small business owner wrote a blog post about how Streamline had saved her business during a rough financial quarter. That post went semi-viral in small business communities. I woke up one morning to 50 new sign-ups. That's when things started to accelerate. By the end of year 2, I had 1,500 customers. $180,000 in annual revenue. I hired 2 full-time employees. A developer and a customer success manager. We moved from my apartment to a small co-working space. It felt like a real company. Year 3 was the breakthrough. A business publication wrote an article about Streamline. Called it the inventory solution small businesses have been waiting for. That article changed everything. We went from 1,500 customers to 6,000 in 4 months. Revenue hit $1 million annually. I hired a small team. 5 people total, including me. We moved into an actual office. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. And then the investors started calling. I'd never sought funding. Didn't think I needed it. But suddenly, venture capital firms were reaching out. Wanting to meet. Wanting to hear about our growth. I took a few meetings out of curiosity. One firm, a mid-sized VC called Summit Ventures, made an offer. $2 million for 20% of the company. It was a good offer. More than fair. But I wasn't sure I wanted to take it. I liked being in control. Liked building at my own pace. Then one of the partners at Summit mentioned something. "We've been following your story," he said. "Former corporate employee builds competing product. It's a great narrative." "Competing?" I asked. "Well, you're technically competing with Vertex Solutions, right? They serve some of the same market." I hadn't thought about it that way. Streamline was for small businesses. Vertex was for larger retailers. But he was right. There was overlap. And that's when an idea started forming. What if I didn't just build a successful company? What if I beat Vertex? What if I took market share from Richard's precious kingdom? I took the investment. Used it to scale faster. Hired a sales team. Invested in marketing. Built partnerships with small business associations and chambers of commerce. We grew aggressively. 10,000 customers. 20,000. Revenue hit $10 million annually by year 4. We were profitable. Growing. And starting to get noticed by bigger players. Including Vertex. I heard through the grapevine that Richard's team had started losing deals to us. Small retailers who were tired of Vertex's complicated, expensive system were switching to Streamline. It wasn't massive numbers yet. But it was enough to get their attention. Enough to make them nervous. And then, one day, I got an email. From Richard Caldwell. Subject line, catching up. My hands shook as I opened it. "Emma, I heard about your success with Streamline. Impressive growth. I'd love to grab coffee and hear more about what you're building. Let me know when you're free. I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to reply with something petty. But I did neither. I waited 3 days. Then I replied, "Sure. Let me know what works for you." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. I got there early. Wanted to be settled, calm, in control. When Richard walked in, he looked the same. Same expensive suit. Same confident stride. But something was different. He seemed smaller somehow. Or maybe I was just bigger. "Emma," he said, reaching out to shake my hand. "You look great." "Thanks," I said. "You too." We ordered coffee. Made small talk. He asked about the company. I gave him the highlights. 25,000 customers. 15 million in annual revenue. Profitable. Growing. He nodded along, smiling, but I could see something behind his eyes. Calculation. "That's incredible," he said. "Really? I always knew you were talented." I almost laughed. "Almost. Thanks," I said instead. "So here's the thing," he said, leaning forward. "I've been thinking. Streamline is doing well, but imagine what it could do with real resources. Real infrastructure. A team that knows how to scale enterprise software." "Vertex's team?" I asked. "Exactly," he said. "I want to acquire Streamline. Bring it under the Vertex umbrella. You'd stay on, of course. Run it as a semi-independent division. We'd give you the resources to grow even faster." I took a sip of my coffee. Let the silence sit for a moment. "What kind of offer are you thinking?" I asked. 20 million, he said. Cash and stock. It was a good offer. More than good. But I didn't need it. And I definitely didn't want it. Not from him. "I appreciate the offer," I said. "But I'm not interested in selling." His smile faltered. Just for a second. "Emma, be realistic. You've had a great run, but scaling a company is hard. Competition is brutal. You need partners who know what they're doing." There it was. The same condescending tone. The same assumption that I didn't know what I was doing. "I have partners," I said. "Investors who believe in what I'm building. A team that's been with me from the beginning. I don't need Vertex." "Don't be emotional about this," he said. "This is business." "It is business," I said. "And my business is doing just fine without you." I stood up. "Thanks for the coffee, Richard." I walked out before he could respond. That conversation lit a fire under me. I went back to the office and called an all-hands meeting. Told my team what had happened. Told them we were going to grow faster, stronger, better than Vertex ever could. And we did. Over the next year, we doubled our customer base. 50,000 customers. 30 million in annual revenue. We expanded our product line. Added features for mid-sized businesses. Started competing directly with Vertex in their core market. And we were winning. I heard through the grapevine that Vertex's growth had stalled. They were losing deals to us left and right. Their stock price dropped. Investors were getting nervous. Richard tried to pivot. Announced a new small business initiative. A watered-down version of Streamline. Too little, too late. By year 6, Streamline was worth $80 million. We'd raised a Series B. Had 120 employees. 3 offices across the country. And we were still growing. Then I got another email from Richard. This one wasn't friendly. "Emma, we need to talk. This isn't just business anymore. You're actively trying to destroy what I've built." I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my office. Unannounced. My assistant tried to stop him, but he pushed past her. Walked right into my office like he owned the place. "You need to stop," he said. "Stop what?" I asked, not looking up from my computer. "You know what? You're targeting our clients. Undercutting our pricing. Poaching our employees." "I'm running a business," I said. "If your clients prefer my product, that's not my problem." "This is personal for you," he said. "You're doing this to get back at me." I finally looked up at him. "You're right," I said. "It is personal. You humiliated me. You told me to stick to simple work. You made me feel like I was nothing. I was trying to protect you, protect me." I laughed. "You were protecting your ego. You couldn't stand the idea that someone you saw as beneath you might have a better idea than you." He didn't have an answer for that. "I'm not trying to destroy Vertex," I said. "I'm just building something better. If that destroys you, that's on you." He left without another word. 3 months later, Vertex Solutions was acquired by a larger competitor. Richard stayed on for 6 months as part of the transition, then quietly left. I heard he retired to somewhere in Colorado. I never heard from him again. As for Streamline, we kept growing. By year 8, we hit $100 million in annual revenue. Had 300 employees. Offices in 5 cities. We were approached by multiple companies wanting to acquire us. This time, I was ready to listen. Not because I needed the money, but because I'd built what I set out to build. I'd proven that I could do it. That Richard was wrong. That I was more than just someone who made things look pretty. We sold Streamline for $320 million. I kept a small stake in the company and stayed on as an advisor. But I stepped away from the day-to-day. I'd done what I needed to do. The day the acquisition closed, I was sitting in my apartment. The same apartment I'd lived in when I started Streamline. I'd never moved. Never felt the need to. I was drinking coffee and looking out the window when my phone buzzed. An email. From Richard. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity got the better of me. "Emma, I saw the news about Streamline. Congratulations. You proved me wrong. I'm sorry for how I treated you. If you're ever interested in investing in new ventures, I'm starting something new and could use a partner like you." I read it 3 times. Then I typed a reply. Just 2 words. Too late. I hit send. And I smiled. Because respect isn't given. It's earned. And I'd earned mine. Not by asking for it. Not by waiting for someone to see my worth. But by proving it. To Richard. To everyone who doubted me. And most importantly, to myself. That night, I went out to dinner with my team. The original 5 people who'd been with me from the beginning. We laughed. Told stories. Celebrated everything we'd built together. And when I got home, I sat down and started sketching. A new idea. A new problem to solve. Because that's what I do. I build things. Not to prove anything to anyone anymore. But because I love it. Because I'm good at it. And because I can. Richard's voice still echoes in my head sometimes. Stick to simple work. But now, when I hear it, I don't feel small. I feel powerful. Because I took that dismissal and turned it into fuel. I took that humiliation and turned it into a $300 million exit. And I did it all without him. Without his approval. Without his resources. Without his belief. I did it with my own hands. My own vision. My own stubborn refusal to accept that someone else got to decide what I was capable of. People ask me now if I ever regretted leaving Vertex. If I ever wondered what would have happened if I'd stayed. If I'd played it safe. Kept my head down. Stuck to simple work. And my answer is always the same. Not for a single second. Because that moment in the conference room, as painful as it was, gave me something I never would have found if I'd stayed. Freedom. Not financial freedom, though that came later. But the freedom to bet on myself. To trust my own judgment. To build something that was entirely mine. And that's worth more than any salary. Any title. Any amount of approval from people who never believed in me anyway. Sometimes I think about what I'd say to Richard if I saw him again. If we ran into each other at some conference or networking event. Would I gloat? Would I throw his words back in his face? Would I tell him exactly how wrong he was? Probably not. Because the truth is, he doesn't matter anymore. His opinion of me, his belief in what I could or couldn't do, it's irrelevant. I don't need his validation. I don't need his apology. I don't need anything from him. And that's the real victory. Not the money. Not the success. Not even the satisfaction of proving him wrong. The real victory is that I no longer care. I built Streamline for me. For the version of myself that sat in that conference room and felt like the smallest person in the world. For every person who's ever been told they're not good enough. Not smart enough. Not experienced enough. For everyone who's ever had someone look them in the eye and tell them to know their place. I built it to prove that there is no place. No ceiling. No limit to what you can do if you're willing to work for it. If you're willing to bet on yourself when no one else will. My life now is nothing like it was 8 years ago. I have financial security I never dreamed of. Opportunities that seemed impossible back then. A reputation in the tech world as someone who built something from nothing. But the thing I'm most proud of isn't any of that. It's the fact that I kept going. When Richard laughed at my idea. When people avoided eye contact with me in the office. When I was eating ramen in my apartment wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. When investors passed on us. When competitors copied our features. When I wanted to give up 1,000 different times. I kept going. And that's the real lesson here. Not that you need to build $100 million company to prove your worth. Not that success is about revenge or proving people wrong. But that you have to believe in yourself even when, especially when, no one else does. You have to be willing to look foolish. To fail. To hear no over and over and over again. And you have to do it anyway. Because the alternative, living your life according to someone else's limitations, is so much worse than any failure. I think about the people who helped me along the way. The early users who believed in Streamline when it was barely functional. The investors who took a chance on a first-time founder with no track record. The employees who joined when we couldn't afford to pay market-rate salaries. The mentors who gave me advice when I had no idea what I was doing. Those people matter more to me than any critic ever could. Because they saw something in me, in what I was building, when it would have been so much easier to dismiss it. Just like Richard did. And I try to pay that forward now. I invest in other founders. Especially women. Especially people building their first company. Especially people who've been told they're not ready. Not experienced enough. Not whatever enough. Because I remember what it felt like. And I want to be the person I needed back then. Someone who says I believe in you when everyone else is saying stick to simple work. Last month, I got an email from a young woman named Sarah. She'd just left her corporate job to start a company. Her boss had told her she was crazy. That she'd never make it. That she should be grateful for the stability of a steady paycheck. She reached out to me asking for advice. I met her for coffee. The same coffee shop where Richard had tried to acquire Streamline. I told her my story. All of it. The humiliation. The anger. The fear. The struggle. The victory. And when I was done, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Thank you. I needed to hear that it's possible." It's more than possible, I told her. It's inevitable. If you keep going. That conversation reminded me why I'm glad everything happened the way it did. Because if Richard had supported my idea back then, if he'd brought Streamline into Vertex, I would have learned the wrong lesson. I would have learned that success comes from getting approval. From having powerful people believe in you. From playing by someone else's rules. Instead, I learned that success comes from believing in yourself. From creating your own rules. From building something so undeniable that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And that's a lesson I carry with me every single day. When I'm evaluating a new investment. When I'm advising a struggling founder. When I'm standing in front of an audience telling my story. I carry the memory of that conference room. The sound of Richard's laugh. The feeling of walking out with my head down and my hands shaking. Not because I want to stay angry, but because I never want to forget what it felt like. Because that feeling is what pushed me to become who I am today. And who I am today is someone who doesn't wait for permission. Someone who doesn't accept other people's limitations. Someone who builds things that matter because I can and because I want to. Not because someone gave me permission. Not because it was safe. but because it was mine. My idea. My risk. My victory. And in the end, that's all that matters. The other day, I was cleaning out some old files on my laptop. I found the original pitch deck I'd prepared for that meeting with Richard. The one where he laughed at me. I opened it and read through it. And you know what? It was good. Really good. The market analysis was solid. The product vision was clear. The business model made sense. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't naive. I was right. And Richard was wrong. But here's the thing that hit me as I was reading through that old deck. It didn't matter whether I was right or wrong in that moment. What mattered was what I did next. Because being right means nothing if you don't act on it. If I'd let Richard's dismissal stop me, I would have been right and broke and bitter. Instead, I was right and successful and free. And that made all the difference. I saved that old deck. Printed it out and framed it. It hangs in my office now. Not as a reminder of Richard, but as a reminder of me. Of who I was. Of who I became. Of everything that can happen when you refuse to accept someone else's version of your story. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry. If I still carry resentment toward Richard. If I think about revenge. And the honest answer is no. I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a long time. That anger fueled me. Pushed me. Kept me going on days when I wanted to quit. But eventually, the anger faded. Because I realized something important. Richard didn't have power over me anymore. He'd had it once, in that conference room, when his opinion felt like it could define my entire future. But the moment I walked away and started building Streamline on my own, I took that power back. Every customer I signed. Every dollar of revenue I generated. Every employee I hired. Every milestone we hit. Each one was proof that his opinion didn't matter. That I didn't need his belief. That I was capable of so much more than he'd ever given me credit for. And once I realized that, the anger just dissolved. It was replaced by something better. Gratitude. Not for Richard, obviously. But for the situation. Because if he'd said yes that day, if he'd embraced my idea and brought it into Vertex, I would never have become who I am. I would have been an employee with a good idea that someone else owned. Instead, I'm a founder with a track record. An investor with capital. A mentor with a story. And that's worth so much more than any corporate title could ever be. So no, I'm not angry. I'm grateful. For the rejection. For the humiliation. For the moment that forced me to bet on myself. Because that moment changed everything. My company, Streamline, it's not just a success story. It's proof. Proof that the people who doubt you don't get to define you. Proof that the worst moments of your life can become the catalyst for the best ones. Proof that respect isn't something you wait around hoping someone will give you. It's something you earn by showing up, doing the work, and refusing to quit no matter how many people tell you you're not enough. And I earned it. Not by being perfect. Not by never making mistakes. But by being stubborn enough to keep going. By being brave enough to bet everything on a vision that only I could see. By being smart enough to learn from every failure and strong enough to get back up every time I got knocked down. That's what I want people to understand when they hear my story. It's not about me being special. It's not about me having some unique talent or advantage. It's about me refusing to accept the limitations other people tried to place on me. And if I can do that, anyone can. The emails still come sometimes. From Richard. He's started a new company. Something in the logistics space. And he keeps reaching out, asking if I want to invest. Asking if I want to be an advisor. Asking if I want to partner with him on something. And every time, I send the same reply. No, thank you. Short. Polite. Final. Because I don't owe him anything. Not my time. Not my money. Not my expertise. And definitely not my forgiveness. Some people think that's petty. That I should let it go. Move on. Be the bigger person. But here's what they don't understand. Saying no to Richard isn't about holding a grudge. It's about having boundaries. It's about recognizing that some people don't deserve access to you just because they suddenly see your value. Richard didn't believe in me when it mattered. He didn't support me when I needed it. He didn't see my potential when it was right in front of him. And now that I've proven myself, now that I'm successful and connected and valuable, he wants in. He wants to benefit from the very thing he mocked. And I get to say no. That's not petty. That's self-respect. And I earned that too. The journey from that conference room to where I am now wasn't easy. There were so many moments when I doubted myself. When I wondered if Richard was right. When I thought maybe I should have just stayed in my lane. Done the simple work. Been grateful for what I had. But I'm so glad I didn't. Because this life, the one I built for myself, is so much richer than anything I could have had if I'd played it safe. Not because of the money, though that's nice. Not because of the recognition, though that's validating. But because I know, deep in my bones, that I did this. Me. Not because someone gave me permission. Not because I got lucky. But because I worked for it. Because I believed in it. Because I refused to let anyone, even someone I respected, tell me what I was capable of. And that feeling, that knowledge, is something no one can ever take away from me. So if you're reading this, if you're hearing my story and seeing yourself in it, if you've ever been dismissed or doubted or told to know your place, I want you to remember something. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need someone else to validate your dreams before you start chasing them. You just need to start. Take the first step. Then the next one. Then the one after that. And keep going, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because the people who make it aren't the ones who never face rejection. They're the ones who face it and keep going anyway. They're the ones who turn rejection into motivation instead of defeat. And I promise you, if you do that, if you keep showing up even when no one believes in you, eventually you'll look back and realize that their doubt never mattered. Only yours did. I'm sitting in my home office right now as I tell you this story. It's early morning. The sun is just coming up. And I'm working on something new. Another idea. Another problem I want to solve. Because that's who I am now. Someone who builds things. Not to prove anything to anyone. But because it's what I love. What I'm good at. What gives my life meaning. And no one gets to take that away from me. Not Richard. Not anyone. The scars from that day in the conference room are still there. I won't pretend they're not. There are moments when I'm pitching an idea or presenting to a room full of people and I hear his laugh in the back of my mind. Feel that flash of humiliation. That spike of doubt. But now, instead of letting it stop me, I use it. I channel it into confidence. Into determination. Into proof that I've already survived the worst they can throw at me. And I came out stronger. That's the secret no one tells you about success. It's not about avoiding failure or rejection or pain. It's about learning to metabolize it. To turn it into something useful. Something powerful. I've given a lot of talks over the years. At conferences, universities, startup events. And people always ask the same question. What would you say to your younger self? The one sitting in that conference room? And my answer is always the same. I wouldn't say anything. Because that version of me, the one who walked out of that room with her hands shaking and her face burning, she needed to feel all of it. The pain. The anger. The fear. She needed to sit with it. Let it transform her. Let it show her what she was capable of. If I could go back and prevent that moment, I wouldn't. Because that moment made me. It stripped away all the comfort and security and forced me to find out who I really was. What I was really made of. And the answer was stronger than I ever imagined. But I will tell you what I tell every young founder who reaches out to me. Every person who's been dismissed or underestimated or told they're not enough. You are enough. Right now. Exactly as you are. You don't need more experience. More credentials. More permission. You need more belief. In yourself. In your vision. In your ability to figure it out as you go. Because that's what entrepreneurship is. It's not having all the answers. It's being willing to find them. It's not being fearless. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. It's not waiting until you're ready. It's starting before you feel ready and becoming ready along the way. That's what I did. And if I can do it, so can you. The success of Streamline opened doors I never expected. I've been invited to join boards, to speak at major conferences, to mentor the next generation of founders. I've invested in 37 companies so far. Some have failed. That's part of the game. But 6 of them have become massive successes, worth hundreds of millions collectively. And every time one of my founders has a big win, I feel like I'm winning all over again. Because I remember what it felt like to have no one believe in me. And I get to be the person who believes in them, who gives them the capital and support and advice they need to build something incredible. That's become my mission now. Not just building companies, but building builders. Investing in people who've been counted out, who've been told they're not ready, not experienced enough, not whatever enough. Because those are the people who have something to prove. And people with something to prove are dangerous. In the best possible way. They work harder. They think differently. They refuse to accept the status quo. Just like I did. I was at an event last year. A startup pitch competition. One of the founders was a woman in her late 20s. She was pitching an idea in the healthcare space. Something innovative, disruptive, necessary. And one of the judges, an older man who'd made his money in traditional healthcare, interrupted her mid-pitch. "This is a nice idea," he said, "but you clearly don't understand the regulatory complexities of this industry. Maybe come back when you've spent some time actually working in healthcare." The room went quiet. I watched her face. Saw the same expression I'd had in that conference room 8 years ago. Shock. Humiliation. Anger trying to hide behind professionalism. She finished her pitch. Voice shaking slightly. But she finished. When the session ended, I found her in the hallway. She was standing alone, staring at her phone, clearly trying not to cry. "Hey," I said. She looked up. "I saw what happened in there," I continued. "And I want you to know that guy is an idiot." She laughed. A surprised, slightly broken sound. "Your idea is solid," I told her. "And you're going to build it whether he believes in you or not. Right?" She nodded. "I'd like to invest," I said. "If you're raising." Her eyes went wide. "You would?" "On one condition," I said. "What?" "That you never let anyone make you feel small again. Not him. Not anyone. You're onto something real. Trust yourself." She started crying then. Not sad tears. Relief tears. I gave her my card. Told her to send me her deck. 3 months later, I led her seed round. $250,000. Her company is doing well now. Growing steadily. Solving real problems. And every time I see an update from her, I think about that moment in the hallway. About being the person I needed when I was in her shoes. About how much it matters to have someone believe in you when you're starting to doubt yourself. That's my legacy now. Not just Streamline, but the ripple effect. The other companies that exist because I invested. The other founders who kept going because someone told them they could. The other ideas that became real because someone said yes when everyone else said no. That matters more to me than any amount of money ever could. Don't get me wrong. The money is nice. It's freedom. It's security. It's the ability to take risks without fear of losing everything. But it's not the point. The point is using whatever resources you have, money, time, experience, influence, to make the world a little bit better than you found it. To give other people the opportunities you wish you'd had. To be the kind of person you needed when you were struggling. That's what success really looks like. Not the exit. Not the valuation. Not the recognition. But the impact. The lives you change. The dreams you help come true. The world you help build. I think about my team sometimes. The original 5 people who took a chance on Streamline when it was barely a real company. When I couldn't pay market salaries. When there was no guarantee we'd make it. They believed anyway. And when we sold, They all became millionaires. Not just because of their equity, but because I made sure they were taken care of. I structured the deal so that everyone who'd been there from the early days got a significant payout. Because they'd earned it. They'd bet on me when no one else would. And I wanted them to know that loyalty goes both ways. One of them, Marcus, my first developer, he cried when he saw his payout. Told me it was going to change his family's life. Put his kids through college. Buy his parents a house. Give him the freedom to work on passion projects without worrying about money. That moment meant more to me than my own payout. Because I'd been able to take care of the people who'd taken care of me. That's what you do when you win. You bring people with you. You don't forget who helped you get there. You don't let success make you selfish or isolated or arrogant. You stay grateful. You stay generous. You stay human. I've seen too many successful people lose themselves. Get so caught up in the money and the status and the recognition that they forget why they started. They forget the people who helped them. They forget what it felt like to struggle. And they become the kind of person they used to resent. I promised myself I'd never do that. And I haven't. I still live in the same apartment. Still drink coffee from the same mug. Still wake up early and work hard and treat people with respect. The only difference now is that I don't have to worry about money. And I get to say no to people like Richard. That's the real luxury. Not the fancy things. But the freedom to choose. Who you work with. What you work on. How you spend your time. Who gets access to you. I'm very protective of that now. Because I learned the hard way that not everyone deserves your energy. Some people only want you around when you're useful to them. When you can do something for them. Give them something. Make them look good. And the moment you stop being useful, they disappear. Or worse, they try to diminish you. Richard was like that. He had no interest in my ideas when I was just an employee. But the moment those ideas became valuable, suddenly he wanted in. And I've met so many people like him since then. People who dismissed me when I was nobody and want to be my best friend now that I'm somebody. I'm polite to them. Professional. But I don't let them close. Because I remember. I remember who believed in me when I had nothing. And I remember who didn't. And that matters. Actions matter. Words are easy. Anyone can say they believe in you after you've already succeeded. But showing up when it's hard, when success is uncertain, when there's nothing in it for them, that's what reveals character. And I surround myself with people who have that kind of character now. People who are generous. Who are loyal. Who are kind. People who build up instead of tear down. Life's too short to waste time on anything else. I've been thinking lately about what's next. I'm 42 now. Still young enough to build something new. Old enough to have wisdom and resources. And I'm restless. Not in a bad way. But in that familiar way that tells me there's another idea brewing. Another problem that needs solving. Another mountain to climb. I don't know what it is yet. But I'm excited to find out. Because that's who I am. A builder. A creator. Someone who sees what's broken and thinks, I can fix that. Someone who sees what's missing and thinks, I can make that. Someone who refuses to accept that things have to stay the way they are. Richard tried to make me small. Tried to convince me that I should be satisfied with making things look pretty. That I didn't have what it takes to think big. And for a moment, a brief, painful moment, I almost believed him. But then I remembered something. Something my mother told me when I was a kid. We were at a playground. I was maybe 7 or 8. There was this climbing structure that all the older kids were playing on. It looked impossibly high. I wanted to try it, but I was scared. I stood at the bottom, staring up, frozen. And my mom knelt down next to me. You don't have to climb it, she said. But if you want to, you can. Don't let being scared convince you that you can't. It was such a simple thing. But it stuck with me. And when I walked out of that conference room, when I was standing at the bottom of this massive mountain thinking there was no way I could climb it, I heard her voice. Don't let being scared convince you that you can't. So I climbed. One step at a time. one day at a time. And I made it to the top. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I didn't let the fear stop me. That's the real lesson of my story. Not that you have to prove people wrong. Not that success is about revenge. But that you can't let fear, or doubt, or rejection, or humiliation stop you from becoming who you're meant to be. You have to climb anyway. Even when it's hard. Even when you're terrified. Even when everyone is telling you to come back down, that it's too dangerous, that you're not ready. You climb anyway. And when you get to the top, when you look back at how far you've come, you realize something. The people who told you not to climb, they're still at the bottom. Still living small. Still playing it safe. Still letting fear make their decisions for them. And you're free. That's what I am now. Free. Free from needing approval. Free from fear of failure. Free from the limitations other people tried to place on me. And that freedom is worth more than $300 million. It's worth everything. So when people ask me if I'd do it all again, if I'd go through the pain and the struggle and the uncertainty, my answer is always the same. In a heartbeat. Because that pain made me who I am. That struggle taught me what I'm capable of. That uncertainty forced me to trust myself. And the person I became because of it is someone I'm proud to be. Someone who doesn't give up. Someone who doesn't back down. Someone who builds things that matter. Someone who lifts other people up. Someone who knows her worth. And doesn't need anyone else to validate it. I am Emma. I built Streamline from nothing. I proved Richard wrong. I helped dozens of other founders succeed. I changed my life and the lives of everyone around me. And I did it all by refusing to stay small. By refusing to stick to simple work. By refusing to let someone else's fear and insecurity define what I was capable of. That's my story. That's my truth. And it's a truth I carry with me every single day. In every meeting. Every pitch. Every investment decision. Every conversation with a struggling founder who just needs someone to believe in them. I carry the memory of who I was. And the proof of who I became. And I use it to remind myself and everyone I meet that we're all capable of so much more than we think. We just have to be brave enough to try. To climb. To build. To refuse to accept the limitations others try to impose. And if we do that, if we keep going no matter what, eventually we'll look up and realize we made it. Not because someone gave us permission. But because we gave it to ourselves. And that's the only permission that matters. The sun is fully up now. I can hear the city waking up outside my window. People starting their days. Heading to jobs they may or may not love. Living lives they may or may not have chosen. And I'm grateful. Grateful that I chose. That I took control. That I bet on myself when it would have been so much easier to play it safe. I don't know what the future holds. What I'll build next. Where life will take me. But I know one thing for certain. I'll never let anyone make me feel small again. I'll never let fear or doubt or rejection stop me from pursuing what matters to me. And I'll spend the rest of my life helping other people find that same courage. That same fire. That same refusal to accept anything less than the life they deserve. Because we all deserve more than simple work. We all deserve to dream big. To build big. To become everything we're capable of being. And if someone tells you otherwise, if they laugh at your ideas or dismiss your dreams or tell you to know your place, remember my story. Remember that rejection is not the end. It's just the beginning. The beginning of your chance to prove them wrong. To prove yourself right. To build something so undeniable that their opinion becomes irrelevant. That's what I did. And if I can do it, anyone can. You just have to be willing to climb. To take that first step. And then the next. And then the next. Until one day you look back and realize you're at the top of the mountain. And the view is beautiful. Not because you're above anyone else. But because you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Where you fought to be. Where you earned the right to be. That's success. That's freedom. That's respect. And it's earned. Every single day. By showing up. By doing the work. By refusing to quit. No matter what. That's my story. And I hope it helps you write yours. Because your story matters. Your dreams matter. You matter. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not your boss. Not your critics. Not your doubts. You are capable of more than you know. You just have to be brave enough to find out. So go. Climb your mountain. Build your dream. Prove them wrong. But more importantly, prove yourself right. Show yourself what you're made of. What you can do when you refuse to accept limitations. And when you make it, when you're standing at the top looking back at how far you've come, remember this moment. Remember the person you were when you started. And be proud. So incredibly proud. Of everything you survived. Everything you built. Everything you became. Because you earned it. Every bit of it. And no one can ever take that away from you. That's your power. That's your legacy. That's your story. Now go write it. Make it beautiful. Make it true. Make it yours. And never, ever let anyone tell you to stick to simple work. Because you were made for extraordinary things. You just have to believe it. And then prove it. One step at a time. One day at a time. One victory at a time. Until the day you look around and realize you did it. You actually did it. You built the life you dreamed of. The career you fought for. The legacy you earned. And it was worth it. Every struggle. Every setback. Every moment of doubt. It was all worth it. Because you're here now. Free. Strong. Unbreakable. And that's the greatest victory of all. Not the money. Not the success. Not the recognition. But knowing, deep in your bones, that you are enough. You always were. You always will be. And no one, not Richard, not anyone, gets to tell you otherwise. That's my truth. That's my power. That's my story. And it's just beginning. Because I'm not done climbing. I'm not done building. I'm not done proving what's possible. And neither are you. So let's go. Together. Let's show the world what we're made of. Let's build something beautiful. Something meaningful. Something that changes everything. Not because we need to prove anything to anyone. But because we can. And because it matters. And because we're brave enough to try. That's all it takes. Courage. Commitment. And the willingness to keep going when everyone else would quit. That's what separates the people who make it from the people who don't. Not talent. Not luck. Not privilege. Just stubbornness. Just refusal. Just the absolute determination to never give up. And I promise you, if you have that, if you're willing to fight for what you believe in, you will make it. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually. You will climb your mountain. You will prove them wrong. You will build your dream. And it will be worth it. Every single second. Every single struggle. Every single tear. It will all be worth it. Because you'll be free. And there's nothing in the world more valuable than that. Nothing. So go. Start climbing. Your mountain is waiting. And so is the life you deserve. The life you've always dreamed of. The life you're going to build with your own 2 hands. Starting right now. Starting today. Starting with one single step. And then another. And another. Until you reach the top. And when you do. When you're standing there, looking at everything you've built, everything you've become. Remember this story. Remember Emma. The girl who was told to stick to simple work. And who built a $300 million company instead. Because if she could do it, so can you. I believe in you. Now you just have to believe in yourself. And never stop climbing. Never.